People of Reddit, what's the worst coworker you've ever worked with? I have several bad ones, but the one that drives me the most crazy is a lady who creates problems just so she can solve them. Ugh. She takes a simple job, finds the one tiny issue, blows that up and freaks everyone out, and then solves it so she can be the hero. Just take the 1 minute to fix the issue in the first place. It would save the literal hours she spends working everyone up so she can be their savior. Long pauses where you go to say something back, then he cuts you off and keeps talking. He has entire conversations almost entirely by himself. He also likes to make changes to my paperwork before it's turned in. Ends up riddled with spelling mistakes while he tries to make the content look smarter. Fortunately, it's all electronically stamped with who made revisions. My boyfriend does that weird conversation thing. Sometimes I just try to talk over him. Sometimes I leave the room. He still doesn't know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. My current suspicion is he's formulating the next sentence during that pause. Either way, it drives his mom and I insane. Not necessarily a coworker, but my old supervisor literally told me not to think, even if it's wrong, that I do things her way, and not to ask questions because I should already know what to do. I had just gotten the position. When I was an intern, there was this old shrew who would call people into her office. My cube shared a thin wall, gossip, then call those people in to tell them what was said, etc. She would try to frame people for shit she did wrong. She was so arrogant. And she refused to adapt to workforce modernization. Example, she refused to learn how to hyperlink in emails, documents, etc. A real ray of sunshine she was. I worked with a guy who couldn't learn new skills. When he started, he had to learn new programs and processes, just like anyone would at almost any job. He couldn't pick up on it, whether it was where to click in a software to get a certain result or how to fill out a report. Everyone on my team took turns showing him the ropes, and it never sunk in. I remember being so frustrated because he could not figure out how to minimize a window. Top right corner, click on the straight line. It took like 3 to 4 seconds for him to drag the mouse to the corner, and then he'd hover around it but never on it. Super nice guy, but impossible to work and collaborate with on projects because so much time was wasted. My old supervisor. She was that special brand of too nice. Laughing was her nervous tick, and hoo boy, it was constant. She was incapable of being assertive, which is not the best quality for someone whose job is telling other people what to do. The best she could do was be passive-aggressively nice when she really needed something done, which just made everyone dislike her. I worked with a guy that regularly Googled everyone we worked with. He knew information about the apartment we had just sold and told everyone at our department meeting how much we sold for. Back when I worked at a restaurant, I was friends with the bartender. Chill dude. Right up until they made him manager, and that small amount of power and increase in pressure made him so angry all the time. He screamed at me that I was shit at my job because I didn't do a thing that I've never been asked to do before. He made me miss my last bus so I couldn't get home. It was pitch black outside and I cried on the bench outside the restaurant. Worst working day and worst coworker. It took me a long time to get over that and realize I wasn't a shit worker. He was just stressed and didn't know how to handle it, I suppose. This girl I work with is overly picky about stuff. Everything has to be her way or no way. She does everything louder to make it seem like she's working, but she's not actually getting anything done. She has been caught stealing from other servers several times, but we have no concrete proof. She accidentally takes people's tips. We had someone come from overseas to work for 3 months in our lab recently. He couldn't seem to do anything on his own without needing someone to tell him what to do, even though he'd supposedly been brought over because of his expertise. What was infuriating was that he would pester you to help him, immediately, regardless of whether you were in the middle of another task or not, and then when you tried to help him he wouldn't accept your answer or would question every part of it. It got to the point where one of my co-workers, who was getting the brunt of it because they were working on similar projects, would actively avoid coming into our office if she knew he was around. We were all pretty relieved when he left. Jamie. Her picture belonged next to passive-aggressive in the dictionary. She knew how to stay on the good side of the boss, but treated most everyone else like dirt. She would intentionally ignore your attempts to communicate with her regarding important work matters, then turn around and claim you were the one being difficult. Whenever you pointed out one of her mistakes, however small, she would throw a temper tantrum like a little kid. Haven't worked with her for many years now, and I sincerely hope I can eventually forget what she looks like. Had a coworker who always gossiped about others and would say horrible things about everyone in the office. It created a super toxic culture and caused many people to leave, not because they didn't like the work, they just hated the culture. I had a coworker who would watch me work. Our desks were sort of offset but we had our backs to each other. She would turn around in her chair and just watch me. I would only realize it was happening when she would comment on something on my screen, so it wasn't even like she tried to hide it. I did my best to ignore it but drew the line when she put a mirror on her desk positioned just right so she could see both of my monitors without having to turn around. I worked alone with a guy whose technique to avoid eye contact was to look into the negative space about a foot to the left or right of your head while talking in a breathless rant. During his stories I would test this by slowly stepping into his field of vision and making him swap to the other side of my head, and I would step back while he ranted. I dunno, he wasn't that annoying really. Just strange.